personal freedoms are limited. You ever heard somebody say, well, we're going to have so-and-so take care of them because we want to go out tonight, or this is our only night that we can have fun for ourselves. And so they kind of push the kids aside, Miss Bridget. I'm thinking, again, I didn't grow up that way. We didn't have a lot when we were growing up, but my mom did her best to make sure that we had what we needed, but we did things together. I love the fact that our church will get together and just have some fun time playing games, or gather around watching a show, or some kind of food fellowship, whatever the case would be. Usually when we get together, there's usually food involved in some kind of fashion, but we're Baptists, that's okay. But anyways, children are oftentimes, they're neglected in many ways, and they're abused emotionally, and they're abused sometimes physically, but they're certainly abused in the mental aspects of, because parents just, I don't know, I still miss my kids. I wish they lived closer. We only have one of our children. Our oldest lives downstate, about 4 hours from here. I still miss being dad. I miss having them close by. Now, they chose to move away, and I wouldn't have chose that for them, but that's what they chose. But I enjoy being a dad. I'm not looking for them necessarily to call me up and talk, at hours on end, several times a week or anything like that. But I would love if they were closer, just so I could see them. I've always enjoyed being a dad. In fact, I'll say this, for whatever reason, when I was a teenager and even into my early adulthood, I planned on never having children. I did not like the home that I grew up in. It was strife, and it was problematic, and it had its large areas of distaste and not what I wanted as a child. And I saw some of my friends growing up in homes that I was a bit envious of. Their parents together, and mom and dad were good people. They were moralistic, and their families went to church, and they had get-togethers, and everything seemed like the perfect. I'm not saying that everything in their home was perfect, but it certainly looked like that from the outside. And so as a young person, as a teenage boy, and in my early, I said in my late teens, I didn't plan on having kids. I thought, boy, I tell you, I don't ever want to bring somebody in the world where that is possible, that could be the home that they have to grow in, because I didn't want to grow up in that kind of home myself. Now, I will say this, that after Mom met Pop, who they come to church here frequently, our home life changed dramatically. But I still had a lasting impression of what it was like growing up before Mom and Pop got together. So I had this mindset, I didn't want to have kids. Now, when looking back, I can't imagine not having kids. It actually doesn't really compute in my mind how a person could not want to have children. They're an amazing blessing. They bring richness to life like nothing else possibly does. If we are obliged to make adjustments in our schedule or choice of activities in order to help the little ones, sometimes people get frustrated with that, but I think we as loving children and wanting what's best for them, it actually causes us to want to make those adjustments. Imagine if you had a full schedule all the time, and your son or daughter or your grandkids called you up and say, hey, Pappy, can I come over? I tell you what, I would clear the schedule. I say, you know what, going to have to reschedule this, going to have to put this aside, and I'm going to have to try to make some arrangements, and because we love kids. Jesus again stated, inasmuch as you've done this unto the least of these my brethren, you've done it unto me, in Matthew chapter 25 and verse number 40. Children are and have been under attack for decades, educationally, politically, spiritually. The process to steal their minds and hearts has been saturated in the school systems and even in just regular social society. Now they're so plugged into the internet and to social media that just to have a conversation with them is actually like chastening them. You have to take away their electronic devices. You have to set them down and say, hey, would you talk to me? In fact, I'll say this, Mom, one of her pet peeves, if you ever have supper with them, let me just tell you, leave the phone in your pocket or leave it in the car. She does not want to see it at the table. When you are at the dinner table, that is the no phone zone. Say it with me, no phone zone. That you don't want to do that. Mom, she may not necessarily, beat the table and stand up and scream or anything like that, but she will speak up and say, you're texting? You have your phone out at the table. Don't you remember? Don't you realize this is? I'm telling on her because she tells on me. This is the no phone zone. But again, sometimes we need to put aside some of those things that we enjoy, yes, but what could replace sitting down and having a conversation with a young person? Just taking a little time to interact with and make an impact and hopefully influence for God and for right in the life of a little one, a young one. Sometimes the greatest impact that a young person will have in their life is actually an older person that stops and gives them time. Maybe time to listen, time to share, time to laugh, time to play. I'm glad for the people of our church that love kids and make a part of their lives an important time for making time for kids. It's certainly the kind of church that I want to pastor and the kind of church I want to be part of. Some additional verses to consider in this thought. Matthew chapter 18, verses 3 and 4. Verily I say unto you, except ye be converted and become as little children, ye shall not enter into the kingdom of heaven. Whosoever therefore shall humble himself as this little child, the same is greatest in the kingdom of heaven. I think humility is a long-lost art and certainly an unpracticed principle that many of God's children need to bring back into their Christian lives. Romans chapter 14 and verse number 10. But why dost thou judge thy brother? Or why dost thou set it not thy brother? For we all shall stand before the judgment seat of Christ. Instead, I don't know all the things that Christ is going to say to me when I stand before him, but I would hate to think that he would ever call me to the front and have a conversation with me one-on-one and say, why did you do that to that kid? You got to know Christ has a special place in his heart for children. When the disciples rebuked the children, Jesus certainly stood up and fought for them. 1 Corinthians chapter 4 and verse number 7. For whom makest thee to differ from another, and what hast thou that thou didst not receive? Now if thou didst receive it, why dost thou glory as if thou hast not received it? Mark chapter 9 and verse number 35. And he sat down and called the 12 and saith unto them, if any man desire to be first, the same shall be last, and servant of all. Romans chapter 15 and verse number 1. We then that are strong ought to bear the infirmities of the weak. Catch the last wording. And not to please ourselves. May it never be said or even closely accurate that we at Lott Baptist Church don't make time and place for children. I'm glad for our Sunday school classes. I'm glad for our Sunday school teachers. I'm glad for the van route that we have. I'm glad for people that interact with the kids that are part of our church. I'm glad for people that are mindful to try to do special activities for the kids of our church. The kids in our community and in our families are the future of this place. And if we don't reach them, I promise you, somebody will. Somebody will reach them. Two other verses, Matthew chapter 9, verse number 14. Jesus said, suffer the little children and forbid them not to come unto me, for of such is the kingdom of heaven. I don't remember what the statistic is anymore, Brother Paulie, but I heard that many children that are reached with the gospel of Christ are reached before a certain age. I want to say it's right in the 5 to 7 year range. If they're not reached by that time period, many of them never will be, because they start getting involved in all kinds of other things that causes them to say, what do I need God for? How important it is for us to make sure that we reach out to kids with the gospel of Christ in every possible way that we can. 1 Peter chapter 5 and verse number 5. Yea, all of you be subject one unto another, and be clothed with humility. For God resisteth the proud, and giveth grace to the humble. Father, I do pray that we would remember the importance of children. We were one once, most of us a long time ago, with the exception of Miss Hayden that's here tonight. But God, I pray that you'd help us to realize that all of our lives were formulated and were impacted by the people that were part of our lives back when we were younger, especially when we were in adolescence. Help us to make good use of the opportunities that we have, and Lord, to share Christ as often and as frequent as we possibly can with the youth of our community here in Glenny, Michigan. They're all around us, Lord. There's families everywhere. Help us to realize the importance of reaching them while there's time, because somebody will reach them. Most of us grew up in difficult circumstances, or maybe had friendships that were not necessarily good for us and caused us to get involved in things that we wish we hadn't. God, help us to reach the kids before that happens to them. Help us to suffer the little children that they might come unto you. Continue to bless this ministry, Lord, for your honor, for your glory. And Lord, help us to reach all we can while we can. Because we know that Jesus himself said in John chapter 9, verse number 4, I must work the works of him that sent me while it's day, for night cometh when no man can work. Bless our board meeting tonight as well. Lord, give safety as we travel home. We love you and ask it all in Christ's name and for his sake. Amen. We've got to pull chairs together towards the front. And, of course, we got our board meeting tonight. Appreciate you being
We
here.
want to thank
Have a
you
great
for
evening.
tuning
Yes,
in
ma'am, Ms.
today
Wynn.
to the pulpit at Lott Baptist Church. Our prayer is that you've been encouraged and challenged to walk closer with the Lord.
Yes,
We
please
hope
do
the
pray
truths
for
from
Wayne.
the
He's
Word
got
of God
surgery on
will help
Wednesday
Christ be
morning
seen
on
more
his
and more
back.
through
So
your
be in
life.
prayer for him Wednesday
Please feel free to
morning, back
contact us
surgery.
if you
Wayne.
desire someone to pray with you, or if there's some other way we can be of help. Tune in to our next service, anticipating the Lord to speak to your heart from His Word. God bless you from all of us here at Lott Baptist Church.